Now, fraud prevention will remain a key priority for e-commerce businesses this year, with further developments in digital payments and also regional legislations. Now, online retailers will also need to balance beefing up on security measures while ensuring a friction-free experience for customers as well. Now, here to unpack all of this and to tell us more about the business landscape and its evolution right now is Matt Humphries from Forta. Matt, thanks for coming on to Ticker Insight today.
Thanks, Brittany and TickerTV for having me. Really glad to be here.
Now, Matt, let's talk about commerce in Asia Pacific. Now, we know that it's tipped to nearly double in market size. We're talking almost hitting 3 trillion by 2025. This is right around the corner. How will that impact consumers, especially their expectations when it comes to online transactions?
Well, I think it's a dynamic marketplace. It's growing incredibly quickly, as you've noted, seeing huge expansion and new shoppers coming online for the first time, particularly in India and China, but all throughout Asia Pacific. The pandemic has forced that forward to a certain degree, but it's also just the natural evolution of the move to a more digital economy. I think in terms of consumer expectations, the way that we often think about it at Forta is fairly simply that customers, their last great experience is the new benchmark. So if you've had the experience of 30-minute click and collect or same-day delivery or just a really friction-free customer experience when purchasing something online, that's now the new benchmark that you expect from every online merchant moving forward. So it means that it constantly raises the bar for online sellers and online retailers, and we're happy to be part of that ecosystem to help those merchants raise that bar.
Yeah, I mean, from a consumer point of view, I'm always looking for free express shipping and getting products to my own front door nice and fast. But of course, I know split shipments can be a hassle and retailers are really working under the pump. Obviously, we know the pandemic has really pushed forward the need for e-commerce and digital shopping measures. Are there any other market forces at play here when it comes to really enhancing the consumer experience?
Well, I think you're right. There's tremendous pressure and a shift to online, which has put pressure on all of the touch points at the kind of e-commerce value chain. We've seen a lot of pressure on the fulfillment network to get consumers their goods faster, and I think those that were really poised well to capitalize were those that were already set for strong customer experiences and strong levels of automation. If I use a couple of examples in the Forta network that we see in Australia doing this well. We've got sellers like Booktopia who sell a book every 4 seconds or even fewer than 4 seconds. So high level of automation to create a great customer experience in terms of being able to deliver quickly on the back end. We've got a customer like Adobe Beauty who, if you order during the day in Metro Melbourne, they'll be able to deliver a sort of a twilight delivery that evening. So I think those forces at play in terms of speed to delivery, there's a lot of challenges in the fulfillment network, but the onus on the merchant to be able to react and deliver quickly on the piece of the value chain that they control, probably a key priority for online sellers.
Well, I mean, Adore Beauty, to have a foundation or, a blush to my front door by the time I get home from work sounds pretty exciting here, especially in Metro Melbourne. But in terms of these pressures, what about regulations that are going to be set up? Are they going to be tightened? There is an explosion of online scams. As you've mentioned, there's huge pressures, not only on the bottlenecks of the supply chain, there's a war in Ukraine, there's more pressures at home here. So how is this all going to play in terms of tightening this for consumers too?
It's a great point. I think, as online retail expands and more consumers come online, it's a larger surface area of online retail in general, which means it's a larger surface area for online fraud and bad actors, even without fraud increasing as a percentage, although it is just the increase of online commerce generally. So in terms of compliance, I think the Department of Consumer Affairs here in Australia and AusPayNet, the sort of payments regulator, do a great job on the consumer protection side. But the brands like Booktopia, Adore Beauty, and others that I've mentioned, I think that managing compliance, but also highly focused on a great customer experience, sort of remain ahead of the curve. I think those merchants, everyone has to be compliant and play within the guidelines, of course, but those pushing the envelope on in terms of automation and customer experience and thinking customer first probably have the most to gain. And the reason for that is it's possible to block fraud and bad actors by just putting up walls and barriers and putting the burden onto the consumer to prove who they are at every juncture throughout the journey. But those that use more sophisticated tools and automation and AI and machine learning and a network like Florida that has 1 billion known identities in it can benefit from being able to be not just compliant, but recognize all the good customers on the way through and not put the burden back to the customer to prove who they are.
So when we're talking about e-commerce retailers, do you think it's fair to say that they really do need to find a balance, not only with trust and security, but also innovation and technology as well to enhance this whole ecosystem here?
They do, and that's exactly it. It's a pendulum in both directions in terms of trust and fraud and security on the one side and great customer experience on the other. But in 2022 and beyond, with tools like Forder, it doesn't need to be a trade-off. So there is that, as I alluded to, you can block fraud by just putting up walls and barriers and putting it back to the customer. But with more sophisticated tools, a network like Forder that has 1 billion known identities in it means that you can accomplish both by minimizing fraud and ensuring that you maximize the good customer experience and let the maximum number of customers through. To give a quick macro view of that challenge, fraud in general globally is about a $22 billion problem, fraud losses. But wow, the total macro view of good customers being blocked on the way through because of kind of overprotections or false positives is about a $640 billion problem. So for every dollar in fraud loss, there's about $30 lost to merchants from blocking good customers on the way through. And we see from our data that if you block a good customer in their first interaction, there's a 40% chance you won't see them again, and that it'll be over to your competitor for the lifetime value of that customer. So it's critically important to block fraud and bad actors, of course, but not at the expense of good customers. You have to be able to recognize those good actors as well.
Well, that is astonishing, those stats you've just shared with us. Matt, I could talk about this all day, but we'll leave it there for now, and I'm sure we'll speak soon about the latest trends. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.